I'm Tab Pierce. I'm the founder and CEO of Caliber Security Partners. I'm here with Chad Butler. And Chad and I go way back, and we've been friends for a long time. We wanted to do this video, kind of talk about some of the things that we see in the industry right now. One of the big things that we're noticing is just how volatile it is, right? I mean, Chad, it's just nuts. I mean, every day, because I own a company, I'm trying to drum up business. I'm looking for that, and I'll reach out to somebody, and I swear it's like 30% of the people I reach out to are saying something like, "Hey, I might be looking, or I am looking, or I haven't told anybody, but I'm worried I'm going to be looking."
Yep.
So the whole thing is crazy. It's different. It's weird. And you know, just the experience that you and I talk about, right? And we've talked about this. And so Chad and I were talking about 3 different personas that, you know, that we kind of see out there in the market right now. And we wanted to have that discussion and right now really talk about persona 1, which is an individual you or somebody you know has been laid off. They're worried they're going to be laid off, and it's just they either want to protect themselves or they want to help out a friend, right? And so, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. I mean, unfortunately, InfoSec, even though I think we've done well historically in this industry, InfoSec folks are being hit as well. And so, I mean, fortunately, I think proportionally we're not being as heavily hit as some of the other tech industries or tech jobs, but yeah, definitely people are worried. They're unsettled about what they're seeing. So
yeah, so somebody comes to you and they tell you, "Hey, I got laid off. I'm worried." How do we help them prepare for something that may or may not come?
Yeah, well, I think to take a step back, the best time to find a new job is when you don't need one, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, you've got more time, but if you have been laid off, you're feeling pretty lousy, right? And your confidence is down. You're worried about the future. You're worried about your bills, your finances, whatever. So I think in that scenario,
curled up in a ball, rocking yourself to sleep in the fetal position.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but you know.
But possibly, right? And so I think the first thing to do in that case is just take a step back, take a deep breath. Things are going to be okay. You know, like we were just saying, I don't think InfoSec has been hit as heavily. I've seen some recent articles that show that there's still a lot of demand for InfoSec engineers and professionals in the space right now. And certainly I'm seeing that in my LinkedIn feed. I still see a lot of recruiters reaching out. So you reassure yourself that it's going to be okay. You know, like you'll find a gig, it'll be fine. And I think that's important because you really don't make good decisions when you're panicked. Right?
I don't anyway.
Yeah. I think the second thing, though, maybe stepping back even further is, going back to the best time to find a job is when you don't need one. The best time to start preparing for that is also when you don't need one. So if you've got the time, even if you don't, networking is so important. So many jobs come from somebody you knew, somebody who knew you, somebody who gave you a recommendation or referral or whatever. And so starting that networking process, I think, is important, whether you're looking now or you may be looking in the future, or whether you don't expect to be looking in the future. It's so important.
Yeah, and I think that so often as security people, we maybe we're introverts, or we think we're introverts, and we don't really want to step out, and we don't want to go out and look for that, and we don't want to go out and do that, or we think that those things should find us, and we shouldn't have to go out and find them. The networking side of it ahead of time, and even during it, and one of the great things I see, and this is a way that people can help somebody who has lost a job, is to share those individuals' profiles and that on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And LinkedIn is such a great tool to get that word out for yourself or for others. Even my son, my oldest son, is looking for work right now, and I'd said, hey, they've got this frame that you can put on LinkedIn that says, something like, that say, hey, I'm available,
Yeah,
it's
open
not
to work or whatever.
open to work or that. And I think that really helps people. And there's no shame in having to go out and look. I mean, I can't imagine that many of us make it through life without actually having to go and proactively look for work. It just is part of who we are. And we don't, and the other thing is we don't have to really worry about like somebody coming up and saying, oh, so you're not working, why not? I got laid off.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, really? I mean, it's so prevalent right now that
Yeah.
people anticipate that.
Right. Absolutely. Something you said there I thought really resonated with me. I think as introverts, when we hear the word networking, it's almost like triggering because you have this mental image of walking into a room, a party, a room full of people that you don't know, and they're all engaged in conversations, and suddenly, like, you have to find a way to break into one of those,
Or just leave.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I absolutely hate those situations. Or like, speed dating for professionals, like these networking events, and that's not what networking is about. The more I learn about it, and the more I try to apply it, it's really about building goodwill with people and like learning about them, what makes them tick, helping them, being generous with them. And I think naturally when you're generous, when you help somebody with something, when you give something to them, they remember you fondly, and they may be more inclined to help you out when you're in a pinch. Not in like a yucky, political, like gamesmanship type way, but like you genuinely help them without the expectation of anything in return, and that builds goodwill.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So people that don't know everything that I do, it's funny too because it's total digression, right? It's like people that look at me on LinkedIn, they're like, "Oh, you still doing security?" So yeah, I've been doing it forever because I do own that, Network Live, which is a networking, relationship, coaching, mentoring business, and that so much is what it is. It's not about, when we first acquired that company, we'd have people walk up to us, you and I'd be having a conversation, and somebody would walk up and go, whack, whack, and drop business cards off on the table and walk away, and you're like, what, do I have something in my teeth? Oh my God, what am I going to pick my teeth with this thing? Because I'm not going to ever call you. But it's really about that relationship. And so you can go on to Meetup and Eventbrite and things like that and search out those people that are like you, because, I think you had said it one time to me, and that was you had reached out to somebody who you didn't think would help you or give you the time of day, and they did. And that's the thing that we have to get past, that somehow I'm not worthy to contact that person or whatever, and we need to take that step forward.
Yeah. Actually, I was doing a networking course, and part of the course was like, be bold. Reach out to somebody you think would never give you the time of day. And I did it, and they did. And I got an hour of his time, and he gave me some really valuable insight, and it was cool. And we're not best friends or anything, but it was...
We're not talking about me, are we?
No.
The interesting thing is I get people all the time that'll say, how in the world did you become friends with that person? And I always just say, I just asked. I just reached out. I just talked.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so, when we think about this persona one that we're talking about, that person that's in, in this economic flux or whatever, I mean, that's really it, right? Is like, what can you do for yourself?
Yeah.
To position yourself to be prepared and help other people.
Yeah. I think the other thing you said there, like we disqualify ourselves, or we self-sabotage in a way by thinking we're not worthy or not able to do that. I think the same thing happens when you're looking at a job posting and you look at all of the requirements and you're like, well, I'm not an expert in those things, so I shouldn't apply. And I was actually just listening to a talk just earlier this week where the guy was like, he asked the question, what's the percentage do you think that that your skills should match the job description? And people were like 80%, 15%, 30%, whatever. And he's like, that's just it. Nobody knows. So, like, don't disqualify yourself. The other cool thing that I thought he pointed out is these job descriptions use words like familiar with or proficient in or expert in. And he's like, so often we read familiar with, and because we're not an expert in that, we don't apply. And he said, it's like familiar with means, have you heard about it? Do you know it exists? And it's absolutely true. Are you familiar with DLP? Well, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in DLP, so should I not apply? I've heard of it. I know generally what it's about.
I Googled what DLP stands for.
Yeah.
So I'm an expert.
And then the next proficient in is like, do you use it? Do you use it regularly? And then the hardest one is expert in, because I think, especially as technologists, we think, I'm not an expert in that. Like, I don't know it at the code level. I don't know the deep inner workings of this tool, so I'm not an expert in. And the translation was, do you know it well enough to teach it to somebody? That doesn't mean you know every feature and every in and out, but if you know it well enough to teach it to somebody, you're an expert. So, right along with that, I think not self-sabotaging or not disqualifying yourself from a job posting just because you see something like familiar with in a technology that you're not an expert in.
And that is great advice. So often we'll disqualify ourselves. Let them disqualify you. Yeah. I remember one time we were hiring for some level security engineer, whatever. And I said, must be a U.S. citizen with these skill sets, and we get somebody from Guam or something that, sends a resume and he's a security guard. Let us disqualify him. I mean, that's an extreme case, but there's always these examples where we look at it on a job description and we disqualify ourselves, or we'll say things like, oh, well, I can't do that because that's really 3 people in one. They want 3 people. No, the person who wrote it just threw a bunch of mud at the wall. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can see that when they're asking for 10 years experience in a technology that's 3 years old. Yeah, I mean, it's just the person that wrote it. So, Chad, I want to get like a 30-second close from you. Like if you had 30 seconds with somebody and you were to just give them, like, do this for the persona one, that person looking, what would you say?
I'd say, use your network, reach out to the people you know, and even if you haven't talked to them for a while, I mean, ideally you've kind of kept that up. But if you're in a situation where you haven't been good at networking and suddenly you need the job, I think people will understand, especially in this climate. Reach out and say, hey, it's been forever. Really, miss speaking with you. By the way, I'm kind of looking for a job. If you know of anybody that you can refer me to or point me in the right direction, sure would appreciate it. Send that out. You may only get a response on 10% of those, but in a way, it's a numbers game. You send out enough of them, you'll get what you need. So use your network. Don't disqualify yourself. Like use those job descriptions as a guide. Realize that they're not always well written and 100%. So there's some fluff there. And then the third thing I would say is prepare. If you think about it as a hacker, a script. Sometimes we approach job hunting like script kiddies, right? We've got a tool that we know, and we just spray and pray. Just see if you can find a vulnerability anywhere. But a really well done penetration test is you're crafting that attack for the target. And to do that, you have to know something about the target, and you have to take some time to prepare. Same thing with job hunting. If your target is the company you're trying to hire into, learn about them. Learn what makes them tick. Learn what they're concerned about. Learn what's gone well and what's gone wrong, and use that to craft your resume. And by all means, use the job description to craft your resume. Don't just use the same resume for every job you apply for.
Yeah, and I'm going to attempt to tag on to your script kiddie analogy and I'll probably butcher it. When you look at LinkedIn or Indeed or any of these job boards, think about that as like running an automated scan. You do that. It's when you start doing the manual testing that you have to go out and look at a company's job board. You have to go out and look, because not every company is going to list every job on those. So that wasn't a bad analogy, was it?
No,
Are you okay on that?
Yep.
Excellent. So keep an eye open. Next week, we're going to be doing Persona 2, and we'll be wearing the same clothes next week. So thank you. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thanks, Tim.